And now with this, we move more to the west, still staying in Asia, going to Israel. And I have the pleasure here to welcome Gadi Hareli, who is the CEO of the Israel Wind Energy Association. Gadi, welcome to you. And actually, you wanted to share this presentation with your colleague, Lenny Kaplan, who is the former CEO of a kibbutz. Kibbutz, of course, a concept which is community power, kind of a cooperative way of living. And there's interesting examples in Israel how the kibbutz movement is also taking part in renewable energy. Gadi.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Stefan, and thank you all for joining in. Unfortunately, Lenny gave me a message that he will not be able to participate, so I'll try to present the best that I can his kibbutz and their activity as well. So let me share my screen and hopefully it works out fine. Yeah, for me.
Looks good. Excellent.
Yes, so community power in times of crisis. A little bit about myself. I'm indeed heading the Israeli Wind Energy Association in parallel to working with the Ministry of Energy here, developing different sustainable technologies from electric vehicles to renewables, water initiatives, and also enjoy participating and lecturing to visitors from developing countries, mainly Africa, coming to learn and see what can be done in their places. Generally speaking, Israel is a pretty well covered country with grid availability mostly, nearly everywhere. So promoting local community power initiatives here is a little bit more difficult than in developing countries, perhaps. But still we can see some examples. Let me see if I can move on to the next slide. So I think Stefan and Monica and others mentioned this, and this is part of presentations which I do give to the visiting participants in the Galilee Institute of Management. And the advantages of renewable energy and community power and the economics behind it when using distributed generation, which is absolutely of much more significance in times of crisis, as we're seeing those now. So having a reduced level of dependency on external supply, external resources, independent economical viability and sustainability, reduced dependency on a single source or a single site which provides the electricity, and so forth, environmental friendliness, safety of the infrastructure, and so on. And I have lectured, I think, starting 2015, and I have ever since been trying to promote the initiative of this circular economic, from my experience with renewable energy, and the need for having the support of the population for renewable energy, trying to extend actually beyond the energy production itself, but moving into the economical activities of local communities, which will provide them the benefits of making income, of not only producing electricity, but in harmony with the things which they are used to do, be it agriculture, marine agriculture, whatever type of chemical production activities, manufacturing, wood, and so on. So this concept of integrating renewable energy with local industries, not only does it provide a better incentive for the local communities to implement renewable energies, but also reduces the dependence on external sources, increases the possible GDP and taxations, which would allow for further investment in this concept of industrial integrator or industry integrated renewable energy. Now, since I was thinking that Lenny would join in, so I'll try to go through the activity of the kibbutz. Kibbutz is a local community that has common resources for the members of the kibbutz. This kibbutz, Maale Gilboa, is in the northern part of Israel. Historically or biblically, that was where King Saul was actually died on his sword. That's the location of the kibbutz. And you can see here in the bottom picture the mountains of where the kibbutz is located, and they actually initiated their. When it was a new settlement, they found themselves on a high mountain, full of wind, and I keep on remembering the statement saying that we had so much wind, we were figuring out how to stop it because people were freezing on the hill, on the mountain, and the decision was kind of let's make a lemonade out of the lemon, out of the wind, and they had a lot of obstacles trying to figure out how to put a wind turbine, the first wind turbine in there. Originally, the authorities didn't know what a wind turbine was, so they couldn't get a permit, so they actually just put a generator, and then as a consequence of that, put the generator on the top of a pole, which was a wind turbine, the first wind turbine that they put. So this whole community was mostly the occupation there is in agriculture, still is dairy, cow sheds, poultries, carrot raising. So most of the aquaculture as well. And in parallel to that, they started doing projects of producing their own electricity. Some of them, which they financed by themselves, some as a joint venture with other developers. So as you can see in the picture here, most of the roofs of the kibbutz are covered with solar panels, so they have roughly, I think nowadays, 5 megawatts of solar power. In parallel to, okay, this is a picture in the kibbutz with a group of students from China in this case. And you can see here the wind turbines in parallel to having a huge hydroelectric power pump storage of 300 megawatts. That is a national resource for peak shaving. As I mentioned earlier, Israel is well covered with the grid, but still this kibbutz Maale Gilboa, they have the vision of being able to disconnect from the grid the minute they wish. So they are preparing and making all the required infrastructure to be self-sustainable. Here you can see the cow sheds with the group of visitors that I was going with, and a set of wind turbines, which you can see is actually standing pretty close to the kibbutz itself. And one of the stories is that the cow that has the largest yield, milk yield, 2018 or 19, I think it was actually living right under one of the wind turbines, just beneath it. So all the rumors about cow milk production, if you want to give examples of high production of milk in parallel to living next to a wind turbine, that's the place to visit. So they have, this site has roughly 23 megawatts of wind energy. By the way, you can see here Slama at the bottom picture. A very interesting view to the valley with a lot of historical value in parallel to renewables. And you can see the solar panels on the rooftops right atop the roofs. Now this is the hydroelectric power plant, the structure of it, the construction phases, the control room. So that's about it, about Maale Gilboa. The last project, which was in cooperation with the Ministry of Energy, was actually turning the whole kibbutz into a smart mini microgrid. So this was the structure just before at the beginning of the project, and this is actually the electrical management of this microgrid as a standalone kibbutz microgrid. If I do have some time, originally I was thinking in case I would not be able to participate, I will skip the kibbutz itself. So I'll just, in a few words, if that's okay with you, Stefan, 1 or 2 more minutes.
1 minute is okay, yes.
1 minute, okay. So generally speaking, and that is what I'm going through a process with all the students that I work with, which are mostly coming from developing countries, is looking at the ways to use the potential in renewable energy by actually adapting our industrialized activities or manufacturing activities to be in harmony with the resources, and by doing so also reducing the need of energy storage, which is of a big hype nowadays. So I'm trying as much as possible to reduce the shift of energy by using storage to be part of the industrialization using renewables. So the idea is really to trigger a process in which you start by thinking, okay, what could I do within my community and the expertise of my community, assuming that electricity was free? And once you start going through the process of what if we had free electricity, you come up with, and I ran across many, many interesting concepts of using of usages that could be used in the communities. The whole concept is roughly stating that the overload can be actually an opportunity, and the opportunity is leading to industrial growth. And the process goes through doing a resource evaluation of the different available resources locally, then going through the community needs, and then integrating the two together into an analysis of the best solution for the local community. So 1 minute has passed, so I will simply finalize by saying thank you. Different examples. Here is one picture which I took from you, Stefan, I believe, and integrated into the alternatives which I have, either going back to the Stone Age, searching for the next plant to handle, or the alternative which we all hope for. So thank you very much. That's it from Israel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this covered so many important aspects of your presentation. First, this example of a kibbutz, which I think the concept played an important role in building the state of Israel, which is very close to the concept of community power, as from I think most